Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Elkins, pro staff shooter with Expedition Archery, and I am here today with a very special guest and also my uncle, Mark Elkins. Mark has been a whitetail deer hunter for
42 years.
42 years. Mark's killed dozens and dozens of Kentucky giants. Well, Kentucky and Ohio both, I guess. How many trophy deer do you think you've harvested, Mark?
Probably about 20.
20, grossing 150.
Breaking 150, yeah, pretty solid.
Breaking 150.
Yeah.
I do know from experience growing up around Mark and the rest of the family that generally when Mark killed a deer, it was the deer that everybody else wanted to kill that year. And somehow he always ended up walking away with it. The deer that we're going to be talking about today is one that I like to consider a local legend. This deer was put into Buckmaster magazine. You remember what September of 24
It was
Buckmaster?
the first season of 2024 to the fall of 2024.
Yeah, this deer, I've heard it have 1,000 different names. I've had people from different states call me simply because I was related to Mark and wanted to know the story on this deer. This deer has gained massive social media attention. Do we remember how many views it had?
It had several million, and we were in Georgia, and we were recognized by a guy from Savannah, I think. He when he seen me, we were talking. He said, "You're that guy from Kentucky that killed that crazy looking deer." And
Yeah,
I said, "Yeah, that was me."
this deer's picture and this deer's story is spread like wildfire on Facebook. This deer was harvested over a year ago.
A little over a year.
Yeah, and it's still to this day. You know, I'm no longer Ryan Elkins. I'm Mark's nephew, and then they want to ask me where Mark deer hunts at. Is normally their second question. Mark, what state was this deer taken in?
He was taken in Kentucky.
Local here to Greenup.
Local, close to me, yeah.
Yeah, we're not needing coordinates or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. What estimated age on the deer?
I think 5.5 was the age that we had on him, maybe 6.5, but he was in that 5 to 6 age range.
And official score?
177 and some change. I don't remember, and that was with about 8 or 9 inches broke off.
But we had footage and proof
Yeah.
prior to harvest.
Yes.
That the deer did have that.
Yes.
All right. And then how long did you have this particular deer on camera, on radar, that you knew this deer was on your farm?
I actually 3 years I'd seen him for 3 years, and the year before in 23 I was hunting an 8-point that had like 15-inch G2s, and he was just really a big buck, and they ran together all the time, and so I was seeing them together, and so I actually had 2 encounters with this deer where I could have harvested him, and I let him walk, and he had drop tines on both sides.
23.
In 23, and he was wide. He was wide like this, but his tips turned down, and he was really cool looking. But I knew he was not the same caliber deer as the 8-point that I was hunting. So I let him walk 2 different times because I thought the 8 would come in, and then he came. He looked like he'd lost an eye on this side, and so he had some real damage to his face from fighting, and then he disappeared, and then he popped back up in 24 and looked like this.
What, and not trying to get once again too deep into your hunting secrets, I guess, but was there a particular process that you used in hunting, locating, following this deer, or?
Well, I run a lot of trail cameras, and I spend countless hours in the woods. I'm always I wear a set of 4-wheeler and side-by-side tires out every year. And I'm like most everybody else in Kentucky. I put corn out, and I hunt with I'll feed 5-6 tons of corn every year. But I don't just do it just to harvest deer. I do it to make sure that they're healthy, and and I do a lot of things. I put goat minerals out in numerous places out in the woods, and because it's not necessarily you have to put just like a Whitetail Institute mineral or something like that. You can put anything out, cattle or horses or anything else. They get mineral deficient, You don't need to mix a bag of cherry Kool-Aid in with it to get them to come and eat it. All you have to do is just put it out. They know when they need it, and they know they'll go to it. And so I keep minerals out in about 5 or 6 locations, and I go every couple months, and I add 10 or 15 pounds of minerals, and they just consume it. They don't. They know when they need something, and they go eat it.
All right. Now, what, as far as special stand setups, special locations to get this deer harvested, was there anything? Was there anything extra you had to do as far as stand location, blind location, like you had to do that to
No,
get
I
this deer?
I actually had this deer on 3 different cameras on on a friend's property, and so I knew that he primarily spent most of his time. He had wandered onto several different places, and I had trail cameras there, and 2 of them were cell cameras, and one of them was not. And so I could keep an eye on him when he was most active. And there's no I was patterning him because there was no pattern to him, And I'd actually kidded people at work, and because they'd talk about it, and they'd say, "Hey, you seen the big buck?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got him nailed now." I said, he's really established a pattern." I said, "He was there on the 12th, and then he was there on the 19th, and then he was there on the 23rd." I said, "But he's always." I said, "The pattern is he comes in at dark." I
Yeah.
said, that was the only pattern he was giving me, and
Key
so
attribute to a smart deer.
that's right. These deer, they don't get like this, been dummies, and so uh, I just focused on staying in the stand, hunting every opportunity that I had, and been out there,
More about dedication than placement.
hours in the tree stand, and just getting lucky because every now and then you'll have a big buck, and he'll walk by your camera in the daylight, and you're like, "Oh, I should have been there," and then you weren't there, so I try to be there.
So, as far as the day that this deer was harvested, tell me the story on this deer.
So a friend of mine from Florida and his wife were up here hunting, and so me and Greg, we had been running trail cameras, and we had been all over, and we had rode the side by side, and we had checked several camera spots, and he was hunting at one spot, and so we go check a camera, and I said, "Greg," I said, the big seven is at this spot." I said, and he's there. He's been there like for 4 of the last 5 days. I said, "I would definitely hunt this spot." And so we go and get him a summit climber stand, and we go and we put a climbing stand up in this spot, and we cut out a few branches, but we wanted to cut some more out. So we came back, and then his wife Terry, she comes up, and so Terry Greg thought he left his bow in the truck, but he left it at the Airbnb. So when she got here, they had to run back and get the camp or his bow, and I took Terry and put her in her stand. And so we were going to go cut shooting lanes for Greg, and I said, "Greg, it's so late. I'm just going to go get my stand, and we'll cut lanes tomorrow." And so he goes and gets in his stand. It's still drizzling the rain just a little bit, and so I go get in my stand. I haven't barely hung my bow up, and I'm sitting there, and Greg calls me or he calls me, and he says, "You're not going to believe this." He said, "I barely got here." He said, "And I just took the big seven." He just come in within 10 yards. And I said, "Did you feel comfortable with it?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I think he went down." And I said, "Well, I'll get down. I'll head that way." And I said, "Greg," I said, "the rain's quit now." I said, "I'm very wet." I said, maybe I'll just go ahead and hunt till dark." I said, "That deer will be there at dark just like he will be right now." I said, "So let's just wait." And he said, "That's great." He said, "I'll see you at the house." And so uh, I hang my phone up, stick it in my pocket, and I got feeling a little guilty. I thought, this guy's come 13 hours, to come and hunt, and now he's harvested the biggest deer of his life, And I thought, you ought to not be so selfish and just get down and go help him. And no sooner than I was thinking all those thoughts, and I look around, and here comes this deer walking 60 yards, and he still looks like he's been drenched, soaking wet, and walks right up 12 yards from me, and he circles around. And I'm just trying to, as big as I am, I'm trying to get skinny on this tree, so I'm like sinking back into the bark, and he's walking right under me. and I didn't realize at the time that he was blind in this eye, and so he.
What an advantage that would have been.
I know. Had I known he was just had one good eye, and so he circles back up and he comes back into to where I've got minerals, and he comes in right in front of me, 25 yards, and I ease up and draw, and I take the shot. He goes 25 yards. That's it, and that's where it ended. And I called Greg back. I said, "You're not going to believe this, Greg." He said, and I told him, and he said, "Can you see yours?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'll meet you at the house, and we'll just go get yours first." So
Archery, correct? All archery,
yeah,
all archery.
yeah. With my old historical Matthews bow I've had for years. I'm just not the kind of guy that goes out and buys one every year because I focus on other things, and I love to hunt. I hunt, and shoot. I'll hunt over probably 100 to 120 days a year between Ohio and Kentucky.
It's not a hobby.
No, it's a sickness, really. Where I'm at's an illness. Sometimes my wife should say, "You got issues," and she's right. I do.
She willingly joined that crowd though. So
yeah, she did. She doesn't fuss too much, that she knows I'm going to hunt.
So once all that was over, who was you said the first person that you called was Greg.
Called Greg DeVault and had him, told him, and because we just hung up, and I called my son and told him. And
did he cry?
No, he he probably said something like, "You're so lucky. I don't know how you do that." And then I called a friend of mine, Chuck Allen. Chuck come up. Chuck actually helped me get him out, but Chuck and Greg, we all went in and got him out because it's so far back in there and difficult to get to.
So I know that we touched on this before we started filming, but how fast did the news spread that this deer had went down?
While I was standing there looking at him on the ground, I'd actually got on Facebook and I put BBD, and people around here that know me, I've got a lot of friends in the hunting community. They knew when I posted that it was, I don't post big buck down for any other reason than something really big has fallen. And I don't, over the past several years, 10 years, all I shoot are really mature, older bucks. And I try to find, I'll go through 50,000 photos and trail cam pictures to find a buck that I want to pursue, and that's what I'll pursue.
1,000 gallons of gas and 5,000 pounds of
tires
corn.
on four wheelers, and it's just what I love to do. And so
now you said before you even got out of the woods yourself,
there's 4 people here waiting to
four
see.
4 people standing in the driveway,
and I didn't even have him with me. I'm like, I got to go back and get him.
Well, I know many times over the 31 years that I've been alive, and I don't know what the 20 years I've been hunting. I know of many times where you killed a deer and it didn't even make it to Facebook. It didn't make it to, nobody even knew about it. It's not that it was a secret, but it just, there were many BBDs that happened that weren't, broadcast.
Yeah, I've killed a lot that I've harvested a lot that have been, 150s, and back in the day that was the giant deer, So yeah, the funny story is I went out to the meat processors, and I had him in the back of the truck, and the little girl, she says, she's a deer hunter. She said, "What'd you get?" And I said, "I got a buck." She said, "Good one." I said, "He's all right." And, she said, "Well, just pull around back." And so I pull around back, and she throws the back doors up. She turns around and she goes, "Pretty good one." She starts yelling at everybody in the building, "Come here and look at this one." She said, if you just harvest pretty good ones like that," she said, "I want to hunt with you." And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I don't think my wife will let you hunt with me."
I'm married. I'm married. As far as a recap goes, what do you think was the key to harvesting this deer?
Right time, right place. Always the case with deer. I've always said for years, and people that know me, if you put a lot of hard work and work ethic into it, let's say you work hard 90% of the time to get to harvest big deer, you require some luck still yet. But now, just like the kid in Ohio walked in the woods, stumbled in, and killed and harvested a 250-inch deer, and he required about 90% luck and
Yeah.
10% skill. Just getting up and going is going to give you 10% of it, but being out there and putting the work into it, the more work you do, the less luck you need, and the less work you do, the more luck you're going to need. So basically, uh, I just try to get an advantage mark, and put a lot of work into
Put one in the bank because I ain't never had much luck. So.
it. Some people work all the time and they don't have time, and I do work a lot, but when I come home, I make sure that I spend time in the woods.
The only thing I've ever told anybody that asked me about how Mark hunts, they'll say, "Man, how's that guy kill big deer?" And I'm like, "It's real easy. Deer season 2025 starts January 1st, 2025 at Mark's house."
100%.
I said, they're like, "Oh, is he baiting in?" No, he's not baiting in. I said, he's out. He's cutting shooting lanes. He's working fields. He's putting minerals out, checking cameras. I said, deer season starts January 1 at Mark's house. That's why Mark kills big deer.
I'll keep the. I'll be giving deer feed and corn and minerals when I'm not hunting. Even though I've already tagged out or something, I'll go ahead and I want them to be healthy. I want them to have healthy fawns. I want to keep a good population of deer, and if you're going to grow bucks like this and some of the others in my house and in my garage, if you're going to grow deer like this, you're either going to be really lucky to stumble on one, or you're going to put some work into it.
Put a ton of work into it.
Yeah, just putting minerals out, or feeding a little corn when it's legal, and because you can bait. Baiting ends, I think, the end of March and comes back in August.
August the 1st, I think.
Yeah,
beginning of August.
So I'm feeding the deer, not baiting them. I'm feeding them to keep them healthy, because they struggle right now. That a deer will lose a tremendous amount of his body weight because of the rut, because of all the factors.
It takes a lot out of it.
Bad weather right now. They're facing challenges, and things like corn or minerals or proteins or things like that help them keep their health up. It also helps them grow antlers, because when they drop that antler, they immediately start growing new antlers. That process is a revolving door. I mean, so if he's poor and not healthy in March, when he starts his growing season in his
he's
antlers,
got a whole lot bigger hole to come out of.
That's right. You don't want him to be struggling. I want him to be healthy in that time while he's beginning the growth.
Is there anything that comes to your mind that you would have done differently when hunting this deer?
I hunted him really, really hard to try to get him in velvet, because I thought he would be in the 190s in velvet. He looked so big. I've got videos of him, and I hunted really hard to try to get him in velvet, and it was just so hot that fall that, I mean, the fighting the mosquitoes, and then you deal with scent control issues and all the things that play into hunting in hot temperatures. Uh, I, you can play the wind in Kentucky and in the Appalachian Mountains, and they'll change the thermals will change the temperature, the
barometric pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it'll move your wind. And the way we hunt ridges and saddles and stuff like that, you might have an east wind and get in your stand, and it'll be a complete south wind or a north wind, just because it'll get in a valley and change how it does. So sometimes I'd get in my stand, and a 7 mile per hour wind would blow straight the direction they said. Then when it get down to 4, it'd change, and it'd get down in the valleys and the thermals would change. So a lot of studying on the wind, because in the late or early fall, temperatures are hard. Scent control is so hard.
Sweat.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like me, I'm a fat guy. I mean, I'm a big guy. So, by the time I climb up a summit climber, and that's what I hunt out of primarily, because I can move. If I need to move, I can just jump and move.
No saddles yet?
I'm thinking about trying this saddle hunting this year. I haven't done it yet. I actually had I sat my summit tree stand. I hunted facing the tree this year, several places, and with a muzzle loader, and I liked it. I liked facing the tree, and I actually walked a 150s this year twice. I had him twice, and just wouldn't take that shot. I had a 180 and a 190 both, and I think the one deer may make 200 this year. So we're looking forward to seeing him again.
Well, that leads me directly into my next question. That as far as whitetails or any other species go, what where do you go from here? Because I know somebody like me, I've killed okay deer, that I'm really proud of them. They're a shining accomplishment, but nothing to this trophy magnitude. But I'm sure it's not over, you know. But do you have a specific giant in your sights? Do you have something that you're going after this, or just playing it by ear?
I'm going to hunt uh, regardless. I'm going to be in the woods, and and it's a big part of it is the pursuit, the chase, the challenge. But and I don't mean to get all mushy, but it's my time to do a lot of praying and focus on my salvation and with God, and I just like to be up there uh, with His creation. Been out in the woods, and just it's I love that. And but as far as big bucks, as long as there's big bucks running around, I'm going to chase them. And I'm going to grow them. I'm going to keep them healthy and minerals, and I'm not going to break any game laws done it. I'm going to be legal, and I'm going to make sure they're healthy up till the point that the state of Kentucky or Ohio says you can't do that anymore, and then I'll quit. But uh, I always comply with the game laws, and when the last day you can bait, that's the last day I put anything out. I don't do anything after that, and I don't do it until the first day that I can legally do it. And it's not baiting as much as it is health. And I like to see them. I've still got corn here, and it's almost the end of January, and I haven't hunted in a month in Kentucky, so. Uh,
I don't have thermals that good right now to be deer hunting.
it's cold as it is, and we're in this garage. As cold as it is, you're right. It's tough, but certainly, I think I had a extraordinary buck, just massive, and he was fat all the way through the year. I'd never seen nothing like it. I'd shared it with a friend of mine from down in Pulaski County, and he same thing. He said, "I've never seen a deer in January that fat." He said, "That's or December. It was late December." He said, "I've never seen one that fat." I said, "He's probably 275 on the hoof right now."
You got to be able to prove it.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of video, a lot of pictures of him, and but he's probably a 6 or 7 year old deer.
To close on this animal, what advice do you have for the hunting community? That's not specific to this animal. It's just advice for anybody in the hunting community in general.
42 years of hunting. I think that if if and I've tried a lot of things. I put out people's. I mean, their gimmicks, and I'm not saying that everybody's got a gimmick, but it's $1 billion industry. The
For a reason.
the whitetail industry, it's the number one pursuit animal in North America, uh, and the sale is a gimmick. They'll put a mineral in it with some cherry Kool-Aid and put a big rack buck on the front of it, and they sell that. And so I actually bumped into a fella from up in Wisconsin or somewhere. We were talking. He said he had a goat farm, big goat farm. He said, they kill or they harvest 200-inch deer off my farm all the time. He said, and he said them old bucks go in there and eat minerals or eat where the goats scraping them minerals, and he said they don't care. He said they'll eat whatever they can get, and so I started just using goat minerals because if you look, the contents is no different really than what they're putting in a bag with a set picture of a deer on the
A
front.
big difference is the price tag.
The price tag is different, and I think you get a little better quality out of farm agricultural minerals than you do off of somebody just trying to make money
Solely
off of
antler based.
and they're not they're just animal health, and I farm cows, and like your dad, we farm cattle, and if my cows don't have minerals, their overall health will diminish. It will fall short.
If it diminishes low enough, they're going to find them.
That's right. They'll eat the bark off of a tree, or they'll eat a branch or anything to try to supplement that mineral. So instead of them looking around for it, I just keep it readily available, and it helps their health, overall health. And I can say the one thing that changed in my hunting world was keeping minerals, just a good quality mineral, and good feeds out when it's available to the deer to keep their overall health up. I think, we went from taking 150-inch deer to 180s and 190s, and I will say trail cameras helped that. It allowed you to see what was out there
instead of shooting the first thing that walked in front of you.
That's right. It helped a lot because and I'm going to say this because your neighbors also knew what was out there, and I'd always heard people say this, and I was guilty. And I actually was talking to an interviewer from, I think, Realtree. We were on the phone. Me and my boy were going to Missouri duck hunting, and he had called to do an interview over this deer. And I said, the one thing that I realized in the end several years ago was I'd say, if I don't take that deer, my neighbor will take him.
Yeah.
And then I realized I was taking that deer. I was the neighbor. I was the neighbor. I mean, why was I taking that deer? Give him time to grow. And so that's where I kind of came to reason with myself. You got to quit being the neighbor. Quit taking that deer at 150, and let's see if he'll make 160 or 170 or 180. And so I'd harvest a lot of 4-year-old 150-inch deer. I actually had a big 10 this year.
I was guilty of it this year.
Yeah, I mean, but if you, and I don't frown upon anybody. Take what makes you happy, but I'd harvested so many I couldn't do it anymore. I said I just and then I'd harvest something I wasn't satisfied with, and I'd grieve myself the whole rest of the season. If I'd have waited, I might have got something bigger. And so I said, I'm gonna put marks on these 2 deer, and that's what I'm hunting.
To my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your dad, my grandfather, is the first person that I ever knew of that used to walk deer.
He did. He would and that's been several years ago.
This is back when there were no deer.
He took a lot of 140 and 50-inch deer. Not a lot, but he took several. He took a buck close to here years ago that, they took put in the or they put in the paper, because it was a really nice buck. I was actually with him but he was a lot tougher than me. I was about 13 or 14, and he was a lot tougher than me. I was froze to death. I went to the truck. I was asleep in the truck, and he come walking out, which we didn't have a lot of 4-wheelers back then. We done a whole lot of walking.
And not there's many thermals, and
we were all skinny too.
Yeah.
We were all skinny, and we that's right. We done a lot of walking around the woods, and they didn't have thermals and stuff like that, and we wore 2 pair of tube socks and a Betsy Ross bread bags on our feet to try to stay warm. We were a little. We didn't have all the amenities we do now as far as hunting. I wear a lot warmer clothes now.
Yeah. Well, this deer is without question, this is a deer of a lifetime for any whitetail hunter in the industry. I don't care if you've hunted your entire life or started hunting this year. Like I say, I have every intention of doing another deer with you, an Ohio deer that you harvested. I want to thank anybody that watched. Like I say, I hope you learned something. I know that I did. I've spent 30 years listening to hunting information come out of Mark, and probably it's, probably credited to any big kill that I've had, since I was a child. So I appreciate everybody watching. Please stay tuned for the next video, and send me a DM or an inbox if you have any questions.